Okay, and we'll give a moment to Tinin to read the questions, and we will have our Q&A session now.
You should.
Wow, we have a lot of questions. I really don't know where to start. Would you recommend, should you accept my friends, will you accept my friend's request in Facebook? Yes. So, and can I be the next Justin Bieber? You should be the next who you are, you know, like not Justin Bieber, okay? You know, you should find your own brand, you should find your own style, okay? Try not to mimic or, you know, imitate somebody else's. If I believe that I can go to Stanford University, can I? Of course. You know, whatever you project out, you know, what kind of imagination you have, you know, thought you have, that becomes reality. Okay? And, you know, so try to imagine the absolute best, you know. So think about the absolute best in a situation, because that will motivate you to work harder. And you know, they will, you will find that particular kind of karmic situations as you are keep thinking about that, okay? So it is not to say you are completely attached, okay? Because inevitably, if you do not accomplish your dream, you will also, what? Suffer. So you will work very hard and you will try your best while realizing that everything is, you do not have, you know, control over everything. Okay. I have a couple of questions about, you know, Pure Land Buddhism and then a Buddhist sect. Korean Buddhism and so is Chinese Buddhism actually. It's not as heavily sectarian in nature. You will see that in Chinese Buddhism, especially Taiwanese Buddhism, you know, the two of the most dominant in sects. That is not even a sect. You know, two of the dominant practice are Pure Land, you know, Buddhist practice, and then Chan or Zen or Sun, you know, Burgyo, Sun Buddhist. Sitting meditation, and you also see that in Korea as well. You know, the Pure Land Buddhism and so as, you know, Lotus Sutra based Buddhism, or you know, Chan or Zen or Sun, you know, those meditation sitting, they are all part of, you know, Korean Buddhism. The difference is that it is not as heavily sectarian in nature. What that means is in Japan, you know, a lot of Japanese Buddhisms are heavily sectarian. It is because, you know, during the 17th century, the government at that time basically told all those different, you know, Buddhist sects in Japan not to speak to each other, because they realized that the religious, you know, institution itself can be a threat to existing, you know, governments. So therefore, they want to make sure that each sect do not get to speak to each other. So what that means is, you know, each sect becomes, you know, extremely sectarianized, and so they get to have their own particular brand. You know, what that means is, if you are, you know, Zen Buddhist, you don't, you know, get to practice in Pure Land, you know, Buddhism. Or if you're Pure Land Buddhist, then you don't get to practice, you know, Lotus Sutra based, you know, Buddhist. However, that is not the case in Korea or in China. Okay. Okay, if everything is impermanent, and why is the existence of God? Well, according to, that's very interesting question, because according to the way Buddhists see, it basically God himself is not eternal, okay? So, and he or she thinks, he or she is eternal. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are born as a God, right? And then you can just create the universe like the way you want it. Just by imagining something, it just appeared to you, okay? So, the world appears, okay? And then you think that you're almighty and you'll live forever. That's what God thinks. However, according to the Buddha, he himself will live a long, 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 long time, but inevitably there's an ending point. Okay? So that's how Buddhists see the world. For a lot of us who do not have that kind of wisdom or realization, it feels like doctrine. It feels like some kind of belief that we have to subscribe to. However, I guess the main point here isn't so much whether that is correct or not. I guess what we need to remind ourselves is that there are a lot of differences in religion, but being able to respectful, I respect your religion. I know that our tradition is different from yours, and your tradition is different from me. However, just let's set aside sort of belief doctrinal aspects, but let's just focus on what individual we need to do as a moral guidance. Like if you are a Christian, you do have to love your neighbor, like yourself, right? So if you are, just really following, what the message of Jesus, then the behavioral pattern that you will see is very similar. Whether you are Buddhist, whether you are Islam, or Muslim, or you are Christians, you will be very compassionate toward other people and try to be understanding and loving and practicing kindness. So there you will be able to recognize similarity. So it's not, if you want to argue about belief, you will never, there will be no end, okay? And you will just continuously just fight, and then you will feel hurt, whatnot. So that's not the path that I recommend. Okay. Okay. Rather than just this, if you have a question, can you just raise your hand and maybe I can just go over quickly? Yes.
Some of my Christian friends think Buddhism is more of a philosophy than a religion. What is your opinion?
Okay. When somebody says, "Oh, Buddhism is just philosophy," what does it mean?
Well,
what are they saying?
They say Buddhism tells you how to live, be nice to others and respect your elders. So they think of it as a way of life more than praying to someone or honoring a God.
Right. Okay. This is very, very interesting questions. Okay. Let me just recap what he's saying. Basically he's asking, a lot of my friends are asking me, Buddhism is not really religion. It is just a philosophy. It's about a way of living. What it means is that I get to define what religion is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Me being Christians, I get to define what religion is. Religion is something similar to my way of doing. Whereas your way of doing is just a philosophy. Right? So, we keep that in mind, whenever somebody tries to define something without disclosing his own pre-assumption about what religion is, that's not correct, they are not being honest to you. So, for example, here is the difference between philosophy and religion. As a scholar, I can say that the difference is, if it does not have a community, it is a philosophy. It is just a bunch of nice thoughts. But if there is a strong community that people come to temple every Sunday and they get to pray together, that's a religion. You see what I mean? So the difference is not so much whether you have a certain belief set and you pray like the way Christian would pray to Jesus. That's not you don't get to decide based on that, okay? So whenever somebody asks you, oh, Buddhism is X, Y, and G, because they do not resemble what they believe, but it's usually Christianity, then you just point out his or her pre-assumptions about what religion is, okay? Yes. Yes.
So what Christians believe is when they die, they go to hell. Oh, where do we go?
Heaven.
Where do we go?
The Freudian slip. Yes.
So, if we do bad stuff, where do we go?
Okay. Oh, this is another excellent question. Like our whatever we have, our own future destiny is it depends on what we do right now. Whatever we do through our action or through our speech or through our thoughts create certain habitual pattern. You know what I mean? So, like for example, if you go to a big, large, mall, shopping mall, and there's like a large, super large mall, and it has like thousands of different stores, right? Do you get to visit every single store?
No.
No. You have certain patterns, certain habitual tendency to go to certain, store, right? And that particular tendency has nothing to do with God. I mean, it is you yourself created that particular tendency, right? Mm-hmm. Likewise, when you die, there are different options. Some of the options involves being born in, Pure Land, or in heaven, or being reborn as human being, or being reborn as an animal, or you can be reborn as a hell being. Okay. However, all these options are opening to you, and like the way you are attracted to a certain the shops in a large mall, your habitual tendency will determine your future destiny. That is, if you were like full of anger and hatred all the time, then what happened is when all different options opened up, you'll be naturally drawn to people who are also angry and hateful all the time. That's called what? Hell. Okay? Whereas if you are really compassionate and loving, and that you've been always trying to helpful and selfless, then you are naturally drawn to people who are just like you. That's called what? Heaven. It has nothing to do with God is there. Well, you go to hell, you go to heaven. Just because you love me and then you get love me. That is so like a childlike God. It's like sort of like human projections of it's about fearful relationship with your father. They basically project it out, and then whether the God is being loved or not, they'll just perish you forever. Just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so the important thing is this: future life is all depending on what you do right now. Okay? And nobody is there to judge you. Nobody is there to punish you. So while you're living, try to create good habit. That's called karma. Okay? Yes.
What if you have like two dreams, like a doctor and a famous basketball player? Should you take like the easy dream?
Oh, so between basketball player and doctor.
For you?
Well, the thing is, you have to. Nobody can tell you what to do. You have to decide your own. So try both, area and see which one fits better. Okay? Yes.
Which is the best.
Yes.
Is it accurate to say that